And now, ladies and gentlemen, from the heart of the Inland Empire, right here in sunny Southern California, it's Robert Cardoza Live, where we talk about politics, money, and you. This is the intersection of business and politics. And now here's your host, Robert Cardoza.
And welcome aboard. I am Robert Cardoza. You're listening to Robert Cardoza Live on the street at the intersection of business and politics. And we have got a fantastic, fabulous, absolutely magnificent show for you today. You know what? But before we get to that, I want you to know that at 3:01 p.m. Pacific time, it's currently 68 degrees here in the heart of the Inland Empire in sunny Southern California. Well, 68 is the actual high today, and it's a little bit overcast. They're expecting some rain, and then tomorrow is going to get back into the 80s, I guess. And the low tonight is going to be 53. So this is almost like getting into winter for us. It's unbelievable. But you know what? I want you to know that on today's show, we're going to discuss, like we always do, what's in the news, new legislation, the IRS loses, and then we'll continue our news segment, and that's our tribute to the late, great Paul Harvey and the rest of the story. Today's story, by the way, will be, let's see here, it's the violinist who nearly became president of Israel. I'll tell you all about that a little bit later in the show. And then our special segment today is going to be Sean LaFave. Sean and I are going to be talking about healthcare on the Geared for Wellness segment. So you don't want to miss that. We've got a lot of great things that are going to happen today. But right now, I want to talk to you about the news. We've encapsulated it so we can hit the top 10 things for you so you can talk to your friends, your neighbors, your peers, your bosses. I don't care who they are. And they'll know that you know what's going on in the world. And let's get right to it. These are the 10 things you need to know for Tuesday. Your daily look at late breaking news, upcoming events, and the stories that are going to be talked about all day today and probably tomorrow too. And right up at the top, Clinton aides promise to release more of her medical records. Well, Democrats say Clinton's bout of pneumonia alone is unlikely to fundamentally alter the presidential race, but some say it adds to a growing sense of uncertainty. You know, her and Trump just seem to not want to get anything and make anything public these days. And speaking of Trump, Trump stands up for backers against Clinton's deplorables remark. Even as Trump defended his backers, one lashed out at protesters at a rally by appearing to punch and slap them. And quiet reported in most of Syria as the ceasefire comes into effect. But the most powerful rebel groups have shown deep misgivings over the truce deal, which was crafted without their input. Well, next item up is arsonist is sought in a fire that damaged a mosque attended by Orlando gunmen. A surveillance video showed a man on a motorcycle approaching the building with a bottle of liquid and some papers, then leaving when there was a flash. Well, where farm workers are now entitled to overtime pay. Yep. It's a new law in California, and it is the first of its kind in the United States to end the 80-year-old practice of applying separate labor rules to agricultural laborers. And the NCAA pulls 7 championship events from North Carolina due to the LGBT law. The events include opening weekend men's basketball tournament games. Well, how about this? How a study shows sugar industry tried to shape the heart disease science. An analysis of newly uncovered documents finds that the industry began funding research that cast doubt on sugar's role and pointed the finger at fat. Seems a little odd, and we'll talk to our own Sean LaFave about that a little bit later. And what Abby Wambach says about her troubles with substance abuse. Soccer's most prolific international goal scorer tells the Associated Press, "I was stubborn and I was in denial." Yeah, here. Well, Memphis house fire leaves 6 children and 3 adults dead. The city's deadliest house fire in decades was caused by an electrical malfunction in an air conditioning unit's power cord in the living room. And then finally, who raised their fists in protest after the national anthem? Well, 3 Tennessee Titans say that they made the gesture to honor the victims and heroes of 9/11 and to bring attention to the ongoing unequal treatment of minorities. Yeah, well, go figure, right? Well, you know what? Let's get into a little more in-depth news here. I think that's what we need to do. Let's talk about as Syria truce holds, Al-Qaeda affiliates really kind of denounce it. With much of Syria calm for the past 24 hours, a powerful Al-Qaeda-linked group sharply criticized the United States-Russian brokered ceasefire, saying today its real aim was to keep President Bashar Assad in power. The extremist group was in talks with other rebel factions for a possible merger. a move that could dash Washington's and Moscow's hopes of distancing it from the wider insurgency and sabotage the truce. Well, the denunciation of the deal came as activities and state media said the truce, which took effect at sunset yesterday, was holding despite some violations. The Syrian army said it would abide by the ceasefire until midnight Sunday, which maintaining its right to defend itself against any violations. You know what? That just actually just kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Sure it does. And but let's talk about and let's hope that it does hold, for Pete's sake. Let's talk about the political risk for everybody in the Trump-Clinton deplorables debate. A war of words over Donald Trump's deplorables is intensifying as Republicans and Democrats fight for political points over Hillary Clinton's claim that many of the New York billionaire's supporters are racist, sexist, and homophobic. Trump and his allies across the country insisted today that the Democratic presidential nominee's comments reflect an out-of-touch elitist who looks down on working-class voters, akin to the 2012 GOP nominee Mitt Romney's assertion that 47% of Americans would never vote for him because they were dependent on the government. Democrats and even some Republicans, however, warned that this debate could backfire on Trump, drawing new attention to white supremacists and hate groups affected by his America First message. Well, indeed, former KKK leader David Duke offered fresh praise for the way that Trump and running mate Mike Pence are handling the controversy, but not all Republicans were pleased. Well, you can say that again. There's no winning that case. I got you. You just got to know that. There's just no winning that one. And, let's talk about this. How about Clinton actually has a history of ignoring health and paying a price for it. The White House was submerged in scandal. Democrats faced tough midterm elections, and Hillary Clinton, far more popular than her embattled husband, had become a one-woman campaign machine. But the nonstop travel in 1998 took a toll. Clinton developed a blood clot behind her right knee, prompting the White House doctor to recommend hospitalization and a week of bed rest. Determined to stay on the campaign trail, Clinton settled on an alternative. A nurse would travel with her to administer the medicine needed to monitor her health. She kept her condition a secret from nearly everyone, but her Secret Service detail alerted only because an injury could have been life-threatening. You know what? And I don't understand the secrecy. Why not just be honest about what's going on? Nothing there's going to keep you from getting elected, I don't think. Unless God, we've had presidents in the past that were terminal, and some people running for president that if they won, they might not have even made it to January the 20th to get sworn in. So who knows? Well, let me leave you this before we take our commercial break. Witnesses refused to testify in a hearing on Clinton's email. 3 witnesses ordered to testify today before a House committee investigating Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server asserted their constitutional rights against self-incrimination and did not appear or refused to answer questions. Brian Pagliano, and the former State Department computer specialist tasked with setting up Clinton's server, did not attend the Republican hearing. His attorney said in a letter to the chairman of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee that Pagliano will continue to assert his constitutional right not to testify. Well, that makes sense. Now, anyway, we've got to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Israel's Perez, and he's hospitalized after a stroke. Tell you all about that right after these brief messages. Do not go away. We've got a lot of great show for you.
If you want to increase your client base and sales, then consider this, the Relationship Building Network at RBN. Given the current economic conditions and challenges, we all need to work smarter, make smarter decisions, invest our hard-earned dollars where it'll yield the best return for our investment. Many business professionals claim that the most effective networking group in Orange County is RBN. No other networking group or organization can offer what RBN offers. Make every year your best year. Join RBN and start reaping the benefits today. Nearly 3,000 businesses have joined RBN and experienced those benefits. Why join RBN? It's one group. It's one membership. It's no renewals. It's all through Orange County. RBN is a freestyle networking group. No mandatory attendance, no restrictions, no rules, and no penalties. Call them at 949-830-5776 or go to their website at rbninfo.com. That's 949-830-5776. If you've ever dreamed of having your own business to make your life secure, you know Water's Edge Wineries might be just the ticket. In 2004, their founder, Ken Lineberger, created the first winery franchise in California. It was a new concept with all of the functionality of a traditional winery, but without the vineyards. They purchase high-quality grape must from one of the largest winemaking companies in the world. Then they craft each wine carefully and bottle it right at their location. The winery was built to satisfy consumer demand for wine by the bottle and by the glass, but still kept the element of allowing customers to bottle their own custom vintage. Now, they're opening urban wineries across the United States under the brand Water's Edge Wineries. If you've ever dreamed of owning your own winery, it may be in reach right now through Water's Edge Wineries. Just give them a call at 909-468-9463, extension 700. That's Water's Edge Wineries, 909-468-9463. Have you ever found yourself caught between a rock and a hard place? The law offices of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett might be just the answer for you. The attorneys of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett have been serving the Inland Empire since 1989. They're dedicated to the aggressive litigation of civil, criminal, and real estate matters. Over the years, they have recovered tens of millions of dollars for their clients. The firm's practice specializes in litigation of personal injury, accident, slip and fall, real estate, and criminal law cases. The firm provides clients with the care, accuracy, and dedication of experienced attorneys. Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett is located at 10300 4th Street, Suite 150 in Rancho Cucamonga, California. They've been providing the Inland Empire residents with outstanding legal services for over 25 years. They look forward to providing you with aggressive legal representation. Call them at 909-945-5000, where you can talk to a person, not a machine. That's 909-945-5000, the law offices of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett. And now let's get back to our show where we talk about politics, money, and you.
And I am Robert Cardoza. You're listening to Robert Cardoza live on the street at the intersection of business and politics. We're at 3:12 p.m. Pacific time. It is still 68 degrees. It is actually wonderful here in Southern California. And we're talking about news. Let's talk about Israel's Peres is hospitalized after a stroke. Former Israeli President Shimon Peres suffered a major stroke today and experienced heavy bleeding in the brain, a hospital official said, as doctors raced to stabilize the 93-year-old Nobel laureate. Dr. Isaac Kreis, director of the Sheba Medical Center, told reporters outside the hospital near Tel Aviv that Peres experienced lots of bleeding as a result of the stroke. He said that he had undergone a battery of tests and that doctors planned to hold another assessment in a few hours. Standing alongside Kreis, Perez's son, Chemi, said that the situation was not simple, but that the family was trying to stay positive. My father is very special. I'm keeping optimistic, hoping for the best. But these hours are not easy, he said. He thanked the Israeli public for offering its support and prayers. Peres is the elder statesman of Israeli politics and the last surviving link to the country's founding fathers. Wow. Let's just wish him well anyway, right? That's what we need to do. And for those of you that pray, you know what? Wouldn't hurt you, even though he may not be of your religion, to just include him in your prayers. Well, the NCAA turns up pressure on North Carolina over the bathroom law. Yep. The NCAA's decision to pull 7 championships out of North Carolina ratchets up the pressure on this college sports crazy state to repeal its law on bathroom use by transgender people. Unlike the recent one-time cancellations by the NBA and various rock stars, the move by college sports governing body could make moderate and conservative voters question whether the price tag for the law has finally become too high. Economic development officials said that the effect on the NCAA's action goes well beyond the projected $20 million in lost revenue from the cancellation of the 2016-2017 basketball, baseball and soccer, tennis, lacrosse, and golf events. College sports is part of the fabric of North Carolina. It's part of the culture. I can say with confidence that there's no other state in the country that loves its college sports more than North Carolina. That's why it hits so hard and feels so personal, said Scott Dupree, executive director of the Greater Raleigh Sports Alliance, which was coordinating for the events being moved. Wow. Can you imagine? Crazy stuff, I guess, going on. How about this? The prosecutor says refuge occupiers practice hand-to-hand combat. The armed occupiers who seized a remote bird sanctuary in Oregon's high desert early this year were divided into squads and drilled in hand-to-hand combat, a federal prosecutor said today, as the trial began for 7 people accused in the standoff. During his opening statement, Jeffrey Barrow dismissed claims by group leader Aman Bundy and others that the takeover was a legitimate protest of federal and land management. Bundy and his brother Ryan, who's also on trial, are part of the Nevada ranching family embroiled in a long-running dispute over land use. Everyone in this great nation has a right to his or her beliefs. We are not prosecuting the defendants because we don't like what they think or said, Barrow told jurors. We are prosecuting them because of what they did. Yeah, well, you know what? They just want something for nothing. And they're not entitled to anything more for nothing than you and I. Well, Americans got a raise last year for the first time since 2007. You know what? A long-awaited sign that middle-class Americans are finally seeing real economic gains. U.S. households got a raise last year. After 7 years of stagnant incomes, raising pay also lifted the poorest households, cutting poverty by the sharpest amount in nearly half a century. Higher minimum wages in many states and tougher competition among businesses to fill jobs pushed up pay, while low inflation made those paychecks stretch farther. The figures show that the growing economy is finally benefiting a greater share of American households. The median U.S. household's income rose 5.2% in 2015 to an inflation-adjusted level of $56,516, the Census Bureau said just today. That is the largest one-year gain on data stretching back to 1967. It is up 7.3% from 2012, when incomes fell to a 17-year low. Still, median incomes remain 1.6% below the $57,423 reached in 2007. The median is the point where half of households fall below and half are above. Well, it's not enough, I can tell you. It just simply is not enough. Well, here's the latest for you. A doctor is treating Perez and says he is conscious. The latest on Shimon Peres, Israeli former president, who was rushed to the hospital after suffering a stroke. He says one of the doctors treating Shimon Peres says the former Israeli president has regained consciousness and is on a respirator. Shlomi Medzetsky told Channel 2 TV earlier Wednesday morning, that's actually today in Israel, the doctors were meeting to decide how to proceed. He's on a respirator and lightly sedated, but is conducting actions, what is called, in medical terms, simple actions, and is not currently unconscious, he said. The way things seem now, we don't think surgery in the next few hours would benefit Mr. Perez's condition. Perez's office described his condition as serious but stable. Well, with that, we're going to take one more short break. When we come back, we're going to make you laugh. We're going to make you smile. We're going to tell you all about the IRS Loses. And the first case here is an ex-wife's theft of the husband's money saves him from her tax bill. I'll tell you all about it. The rest of these beef messages. Don't go away.
Isn't it time to shine the spotlight on your expertise? The Interview, starring you. Here's your chance to capture 5 minutes of fame with The Interview. This isn't just any interview. This is your opportunity to showcase your expertise and position yourself as a trusted expert in a one-on-one video interview hosted by Robert Cardoza, host of the nationally syndicated show Robert Cardoza Live and powered by AHA Studios. What is it? A professionally recorded video for your use. Robert Cardoza interviews you on the set where he records his show. Professional interview showcases your expertise and value, shot in a state-of-the-art studio. And what's in it for you? Gain credibility as an expert, earn the trust of your target market, educate in a way that intrigues your audience, gain a powerful marketing tool that offers dozens of uses, website, video sharing sites, social media, email, DVDs, direct mail, lobby video, resumes, profile building, all that kind of stuff. Association with the nationally syndicated celebrity. That's right. And let's talk about AHA Studios. AHA is a strategic marketing firm that leverages the powerful in visual persuasion to help your business create powerful messages that connect with your target market. AHA ventures way beyond strategy, delivering the marketing collateral you need to start driving a new business through your doors. AHA has a full-service, in-house, state-of-the-art production studio to bring your messages to life using video. Discover how to make the interview work for you. Call 949-831-2222. That's 949-831-2222. AHA Image Studios, Incorporated. Dr. Stephen Tidwell, Gentle Family Dentistry in a caring, personalized environment. Here at Dr. Tidwell's office, we are dedicated to helping you keep your teeth healthy. We are a state-of-the-art dental practice that still believes in traditional values, such as excellent customer service and individual attention. We have a special welcoming offer for you for just $39, a complete exam, personal consultation, professional cleaning, and all necessary x-rays. That's a $266 value for $39. Dr. Tidwell has 2 convenient locations and experienced staff to provide you with professional care and personal attention that you deserve. Call today. Don't delay. A great smile another day. Call 909-944-7308. That's 909-944-7308 for Rancho Cucamonga or San Bernardino. Joel Saltzman is Dr. Wireless. He has turned his considerable expertise into consumer credit risk and wireless security into a highly specialized independent web-based consulting enterprise targeting consumer credit risk analysis and wireless transactional security and monitoring. He works as a wireless analyst, veteran independent agent, and consumer liaison for most wireless telecom carriers and equipment manufacturers. For more than 20 years, corporate and private clients and media audiences have counted on his unvarnished advice while weighing the technology, performance, and cost differences between Sprint, Nextel, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Joel specializes in setting up mobile wireless hotspots to be used for disaster preparedness, business continuity, and mobile wireless merchant processing solutions. Call Dr. Wireless at 310-400-4900 or go to his webpage at drwireless.com. Again, call 310-400-4900 or his webpage at drwireless.com. You'll be glad you did. And now, back to our show.
The story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Yeah, here we are in a part of the show that's going to, we just gave you all the news, which probably depressed the heck out of you. Now we're going to get you to smile a little bit because we're going to talk about the IRS Loses. Nobody wants to hear about them winning. Everybody wants to hear about them losing. It sends chills up and down your spine. Sets the hair up on the back of your neck. So let's not talk about it. Let's just do it. Right off the top here, the IRS Loses. An ex-wife's theft of a husband's money saves him from her tax bill. Let me tell you the story. Robbie Gilbert owned and ran a business while his wife managed all of their personal accounts. When the couple fell behind on their taxes, Gilbert entered into an installment agreement with the IRS. They subsequently divorced. That was the wife in Robbie, not the IRS. Anyway, at which point he discovered that his wife had stolen the money that he had saved to pay the tax bill and fled. The IRS subsequently tried to hold him liable for his wife's taxes on their joint returns. He went to court to get some justice. This is what the judge said. Under the installment agreement, Gilbert had paid more tax than he actually owed as his share under the divorce decree. He had cooperated with the IRS, tried to pay the tax, and would have, but for his ex-wife's wrongdoing. So equity requires that he be relieved of liability for her taxes. Now, doesn't that make you smile? Yeah. It not only gets to the IRS, it gets to the ex. Well, here's a case the IRS lost. A defense lawyer's mistakes set aside the verdict. Here's the case. Rudolfo Pasquale had lived as a legal, that's not illegal, it's a legal immigrant in the United States since 1970. Now, after the IRS examined his taxes, he pleaded guilty to filing 2 false tax returns for which he received probation after being told by his lawyer that it would not affect his immigration status. But the government then moved to deport him due to his plea. His new immigration lawyer then had him take a psychiatric exam that found he suffered from a severe mental illness that impaired his ability to help his own defense. He went to court, is what the judge said. Pasquale's tax lawyer had both falsely advised him and misrepresented to the court his mental competence to enter a plea. The tax verdict is set aside for a new trial. Yeah. Well, let me give you one more. Here's the case that the IRS conceded. Now, you've heard me say many, many times, they only concede when they're pretty sure that they can't prevail in court. And that's what the case is here as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about. In this case, it's restitution for tax evasion cannot be collected by the Internal Revenue Service under the tax code. Sounds strange, but listen to this. Might even help you in some cases. You know, an individual pleaded guilty to criminal tax evasion and was ordered to pay restitution as part of his sentence. And the IRS personnel asked if they could collect unpaid restitution through tax assessment. IRS legal opinion? Well, restitution is a criminal case and is not a tax payment, but a sanction that includes the cost of such governmental expenses as incarceration and probation supervision. So, restitution cannot be collected by the IRS through the tax system, even if it is for tax evasion, and the IRS applies it to a tax account. The response to non-payment must come through the criminal legal process. The IRS doesn't get to shortchange anything here. Well, you know what? You've heard me talk about being a fly on the wall when the IRS is doing stuff. That's where we're at right now with this segment that we call Inside the IRS. It's just a whole lot like the Twilight Zone. Well, you know, these are not actual tax court cases, but these are positions that the IRS has taken and actions that they've taken that you can actually use in your own defense. I mean, if, you know, it's sometimes knowledge is the most important thing you can have. And if you know how the IRS has acted in the past, you kind of know how to help yourself. So here's the deal. Suppose that you have not filed your tax return for several years, and the IRS sends you a letter saying that it wants to audit you. Well, here's your best approach. Retain a knowledgeable tax attorney to contact the IRS agent and say when the agent can expect to receive your delinquent tax returns. Now, a date for the audit can then be scheduled at that time, or a new date if the audits had already been scheduled. And the next thing you do, retain an accountant to prepare your tax returns absolutely squeaky clean correctly. Now is not the time to take aggressive tax positions, I can guarantee you. Now be careful. Do not call the IRS agent yourself to explain why you failed to file. This admission could be used against you if the IRS later decides to prosecute you for a tax crime. And when they do that, they're talking about time away from home. So, you know what? Be smart. Use a licensed professional. Here's another case for you. Charitable contributions made to an organization cannot be earmarked for the benefit of a particular individual. Now, a common but technically not allowable practice is for the church or a synagogue to raise money to benefit a member who suffered a tragedy. So the better approach here is donations to the charity should be solicited for general purposes, but can then be used by the leadership as they see fit, including to help a specific family or individual congregant. Now, special exceptions here are based on a recent IRS ruling. Donations solicited for families of firefighters killed in the line of duty in Southern California, now it actually goes for all over the nation, are exempted from that rule. So you want to know that that's the case. Now, don't go away. When we come back, we're going to be with our own Sean LaFave in the Geared for Wellness Corner. And then down the road, we're going to be doing our tribute to late, great Paul Harvey and the rest of the story. The rest of the story today is going to be the violinist who nearly became the president of Israel. And I'll tell you all about that right after these brief messages. Do not go away. We got a lot of great show coming right up.
If you want to increase your client base and sales, then consider this, the Relationship Building Network at RBN. Given the current economic conditions and challenges, we all need to work smarter, make smarter decisions, invest our hard-earned dollars where it'll yield the best return for our investment. Many business professionals claim that the most effective networking group in Orange County is RBN. No other networking group or organization can offer what RBN offers. Make every year your best year. Join RBN and start reaping the benefits today. You know, nearly 3,000 businesses have joined RBN and experienced those benefits. Why join RBN? It's one group. It's one membership. It's no renewals. It's all through Orange County. RBN is a freestyle networking group. No mandatory attendance, no restrictions, no rules, and no penalties. Call them at 949-830-5776 or go to their website at rbninfo.com. That's 949-830-5776. If you've ever dreamed of having your own business to make your life secure, you know Water's Edge Wineries might be just the ticket. In 2004, their founder, Ken Lineberger, created the first winery franchise in California. It was a new concept with all of the functionality of a traditional winery, but without the vineyards. They purchase high-quality grape must from one of the largest winemaking companies in the world. Then they craft each wine carefully and bottle it right at their location. The winery was built to satisfy consumer demand for wine by the bottle and by the glass, but still kept the element of allowing customers to bottle their own custom vintage. Now, they're opening urban wineries across the United States under the brand Water's Edge Wineries. If you've ever dreamed of owning your own winery, it may be in reach right now through Water's Edge Wineries. Just give them a call at 909-468-9463, extension 700. That's Water's Edge Wineries, 909-468-9463. Have you ever found yourself caught between a rock and a hard place? The law offices of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett might be just the answer for you. The attorneys of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett have been serving the Inland Empire since 1989. They're dedicated to the aggressive litigation of civil, criminal, and real estate matters. Over the years, they have recovered tens of millions of dollars for their clients. The firm's practice specializes in litigation of personal injury, accident, slip and fall, real estate, and criminal law cases. The firm provides clients with the care, accuracy, and dedication of experienced attorneys. Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett is located at 10300 4th Street, Suite 150 in Rancho Cucamonga, California. They've been providing the Inland Empire residents with outstanding legal services for over 25 years. They look forward to providing you with aggressive legal representation. Call them at 909-945-5000, where you can talk to a person, not a machine. That's 909-945-5000, the law offices of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett. And now let's get back to our show where we talk about politics, money, and you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from his personal meditation lounge in Orange County, California, a professional dedicated to conquering many chronic conditions from autism to weight loss and everything in between. The nationally recognized wellness coach, consultant, and lecturer, Sean LaFave, in his Geared for Wellness Corner.
I'm Robert Cardoza. You're listening to Robert Cardoza live on the street at the intersection of business and politics. We're at 3:33 p.m. Pacific time. Currently 68 degrees here in the heart of the Inland Empire in sunny, well, a little overcast, but sunny Southern California. It's down from 72 degrees on its way to 54 degrees. It's almost like winter out here, except that tomorrow it's going to be back up in the high 80s again. But you know what? If you're listening to us on our globally syndicated network and you're in Torrance, California, well, it's 70 degrees and it's mostly cloudy. And you know what? If you're lucky enough to be anywhere in the vicinity of Wichita, Kansas, it's 77 degrees. It's overcast and it's probably a little heavy out there. Hey, Sean, how you doing, my friend?
Good, buddy. Good. It's actually not bad. It's a little humid, so it feels a little warmer than it really is, but it doesn't feel horrible, and it's actually not that overcast. We've got mostly sunny skies. There's just a few clouds here and there, but it's nice out right now, especially considering that I'm in Wichita, Kansas.
Well, I think that's fantastic. How was your weekend, my friend?
It was good. It was relaxing. I got some stuff done, or it was kind of general chores. And
well, you said you were going to lay back. You said you were going to lay back and do nothing all weekend.
Yeah, I did a whole lot of that. But the one thing I did do is Saturday night we went and saw that movie Sully.
Oh, what'd you think? It's not. It's not factually accurate, right? You didn't know. You didn't know that, did you?
Why is it not factually accurate? What's wrong with it that it's not accurate?
Because the Transportation and Safety Board did not accuse Sully of doing anything wrong and didn't berate him the way they said he did. Sully.
That part part was dramatized for sure. The rest of it was, it was accurate in the sense of, what it took for him to land that airplane.
Right.
And of course they're going to dramatize it. If they make it sound like everyone was patting him on the back the whole time, it wouldn't be a movie.
Yeah.
They did question him. I mean, that's general procedure. They, like even the air traffic controller that they pulled out of the city. Did you watch the movie, by the way?
No, I have not seen the movie. I want to go see it. I haven't had a chance.
I won't give too much of it away.
Well, that's okay. I know at the end they land in the Hudson and everybody gets out of there alive. I know the story.
Yeah. So that part of it everybody knows. But even the guy, the air traffic controller that was talking him through it, when they realized that the plane wasn't making it back to an airport, he was actually pulled from his chair. And this guy was nervous as could be, which rightly so, because if he did something wrong, it's his job. I think they're allowed 2 mistakes as air traffic controllers. And that's
I mean, if you think about it, when an air traffic controller makes a mistake, it could be hundreds of people, if not more, that could lose their lives.
Yeah, it's when I understand, a very high stress job, and like I said, I think you get 2 mistakes and then you're done. And like what they did with him was, because even though it has nothing to do with him, the airplane didn't make it to a runway. They pulled him and they gave him, a drug test, tested for alcohol and drugs and the whole bit. They're going to question him, but the whole questioning part is normal. Anytime there's an incident, they're going to question you. They want to drive as deep as possible and see, was pilot error a factor? You always want to know if it was, because you don't want to, the guy obviously, he did a great job. He landed an airplane in a way that nobody has ever landed before. Yeah. And I mean, that's just what he did was miraculous. I mean, when people talk about the miracle on the Hudson, it really was. It was like, I honestly think that, if the airspeed had been slightly different, if the angle that he hit the water had been a little different, all these factors involved.
If the boat owners hadn't gotten off their on the stick and gotten out there to help those people get off those wings, there was so much that happened that made that truly a miracle. It was, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, it really was. It was an absolute miracle, and the movie was great, and it did show that that the investigators were really hard on him, and I'm sure to him it probably felt like that, and I think that's the thing that everyone's making a big deal. The real investigators going, look, we didn't do that to him, but when you're under investigation, even if it's not someone who's being militant towards you, you have in the back of your mind, what could I have done differently? What if I screwed up? This could be the end of my career if they find that I did something wrong. And anybody, you don't know if you did something right or wrong, or it feels very different in the moment than it does looking back. As they say, hindsight's 20/20.
Well, but my take on that is whether he did something right or he did something wrong, it had to be right because everybody walked away.
Exactly, and that's exactly right. Is in the end, everyone lived. That part of it was a miracle, and in fact, the movie even shows in the end, of course, that there was nothing that he could have done differently that would have saved that airplane the way that it all unfolded. And I'm sure in the back of his mind he knew that, but the movie was about Sully. The movie's not about the airplane company or the airline industry or the investigators. It's about Sully and really his perspective on everything. And so I'm sure to him it probably felt like he was under a lot more fire than he really was. But his job is to defend himself.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Does the movie start off with an earlier Sully as he prepares to be a captain, or does it start off with him getting on that plane?
It starts off with him current, that day of the flight. Mm-hmm. Then it kind of bounces back and forth, and it flashbacks to even when he was a kid, flying, in like a little biplane, kind of looks like a Stearman or something like that, with the forward backward tandem, or front and back tandem, cockpits, open air cockpit that he learned how to fly when he was young. And it progresses a little bit, even when he was flying F4s, for the Air Force and or maybe it was the Navy.
Is it a movie you'd like to see a second time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was that good. And of course, maybe being a person who has, a lot of flying time, I've got 3,500 hours. I'm not a pilot, but I did fly. I was, I flew as part of a crew, 3,500 hours in the Air Force. And so, and I've had friends who have died in crashes, and I've seen reports from these investigations. And I had a personal friend of mine who was a military pilot, but also was an instructor pilot in like corporate jets. Mm-hmm. And they were taking off one day, and I don't remember the exact details of what happened, but he was the instructor. His student was flying the airplane, and something happened, and I don't know if he made a turn wrong or his power setting was wrong or what it was. Can't remember the details, but they ended up piling into the ground and crashed, and they both died. And the investigation was completed, and it was found that my buddy, he was at fault. And even though it wasn't him who made the mistake, it wasn't, he wasn't the one who made the mistake. It was the student. It's always the instructor's fault whenever the student makes a mistake.
Yeah, it's the highest rated person in the cockpit.
Right, exactly. So and it's just sad, when you realize, that something could happen that maybe isn't necessarily your fault, but you are in charge. And so, the perspective from Sully, I'm sure it didn't feel warm and fuzzy to him when he had people sitting in front of him asking him questions. Why didn't you turn back earlier? Why did you do this? And like they found one of the findings that they found was that one of the engines was actually still running at idle. And, and he said, no, that's not possible. There's no way that was happening. And he said, well, this is what basically the black box is telling us, this is what the codes are telling us, that it was still running, and that you could have made it back, and on and on. And so, when you start to question yourself, I'm sure in the back of your mind, it feels a lot more aggressive and a lot more militant than it probably really was. And I think that, for the real life investigators, inspectors to go, hey, this is what we were trying to do. I'm sure they weren't, but the point of the movie was this was about Sully, and it was about his perspective. And so to him, it probably felt like he was being grilled. And he probably was being grilled, but probably not with the intent of burying him, but probably with the intent of just making sure that we get as much accurate information as possible. And that's the way these things work. Yeah. I'm sure it's a very unpleasant process to go through.
Well, you know what? And I think that, and this is going to sound horrible. I think it's a process. You don't want to sugarcoat it. You don't want to spread butter on it. You want to get down to the real bare facts and know exactly what's happening. And that means you got to dig a little bit. And sometimes, these guys are not just investigators, they're interrogators, and there's an art to that, trying to pull information from somebody that sometimes they don't even realize they know.
Right, yeah, and that's exactly it. You can do something and not even realize that you did it or didn't do something. I had it happen to me. I got in trouble. We were coming in for like.
Why don't I doubt that?
I don't get in trouble.
Getting in trouble? Oh, I can't hardly imagine that.
I don't get in actual real trouble, as most people would imagine, at least people that know me. But we're coming in for a landing. I was actually deployed. I was overseas. I was in United Arab Emirates, and we have the balloon that we use for air refueling. When we stow it, when we're done air refueling, because it's like basically a big 20-foot long tube that extends out another 20 feet with an inner tube inside of it that's a steel shaft, a steel tube, and you're supposed to retract that and bring it all the way into zero. That's just it makes sense on every level to do that. You should know. Again, I've learned, I've taught. And for whatever reason, I retracted it back to 10 feet and left it there. And then on the descent, on the descent, coming in for a landing, we're supposed to go back and check it, and we look and we verify, yep, it's at 0 feet. I looked at it, and my brain saw what my brain wanted to see. Yeah. Instead of what the actual truth was. This thing was sticking out 10 feet, and when you land and that little shock of it landing, it bouncing back and forth, they've got to take it and they've got to tear the whole thing apart and they've got to inspect it, make sure there's no damage. And we lost a mission out of that. The next flight that this plane was supposed to fly got scrubbed because I made a stupid little mistake that didn't break anything, didn't hurt anybody, but and they brought me in, and it was the first time. It wasn't the only time, but it was actually the second time, and it was the second time in my whole career that I had to stand in front of the actually the first time ever in front of a base commander and answer, why did you do this? And I had no answer, sir, kind of thing. I don't know. I can't explain why I did what I did. And they decommissioned me and they wouldn't let me fly for a while, and they were figuring out what to do. Like, should we send them home? And my chief back here in McConnell, I was in McConnell Air Force Base here in Wichita, he said, if you guys send him home, we're not even gonna let him get off of the airplane. We're gonna or not gonna let him get off the flight line. We're gonna re-qualify him right there on the flight line. We're gonna put him on another airplane and we're gonna send him right back to you. Wow. So they said, either you figure out how to re-qualify him out there, or we can waste some time of flying him all the way here and then immediately flying him back.
So let's go a little bit deeper with that. Were you tired? Were you stressed? Were you just something else grab your attention? What happened?
Yeah, I have no idea what was going through my brain. There was nothing special about that day. I wasn't tired. I got plenty of sleep. It was just one of those stupid things that.
Well, you know what? Remember the conversation we had last week? Or actually, I think it was Thursday or it might have been last Tuesday though, where you talk about the brain plays tricks on you and it's as vivid as though it was real.
Yeah, it does. And there's a term, but I can't think of what it is, that you see what you want to see. It's like someone says, "Hey, can you grab the pepper out of the cupboard?" And if your mind says, "Well, I don't think the pepper's there," and they said, "No, it's there," and if you look, you'll look straight at it, and you go, "It's not here."
Yeah, not see it.
And there's because you see what you want to see. You see it there, or you see it, or you don't see it there. And there's a term for that, and I can't think of what it's called. But the brain is pretty powerful. It sees what it wants to see. It's like we were talking about. Truth is, if your brain says the truth is this, it just doesn't want to see reality sometimes. And that's what happened to me for whatever reason. I must have been distracted. I wasn't in a hurry. It was a normal mission. Nothing was stressful. I wasn't, fearful. I have no idea why. To this day, I look back and I go, I have no idea why I did what I did.
So now was that a refueling plane you were on?
Yeah, we did the in-flight refueling.
So just out of curiosity, because I just have a couple questions. When you're doing that and you're the boom operator, are you in direct contact with the pilot of the plane you're going to refuel to kind of draw him into that nozzle?
Right, yeah, exactly. So I'll talk to him and I'll usually, depending on the situation, we'll get on the radio and let him know I've got a visual on him, even when he's like, a ways out. Most of the time I won't even talk to him until he's, what they call pre-contact position. That's 50 feet back from my airplane. So I'm in the back of the airplane, laying on basically a bench, a bed, if you will, mm-hmm. laying on my stomach and looking out this picture window out the bottom of the airplane, and I've got in my right hand is basically kind of like a giant joystick, if you will, that flies the boom around, and that's got buttons on it for to disconnect the boom, and it's also got the radio and intercom buttons, so I can talk to my pilots, or I can push a different button to talk to the pilots in the other airplane. And so I'll talk back and forth, and once they're in pre-contact, then basically I'm the one who's kind of in control, or the boom operator is the one that's in control, and says, okay, go ahead and proceed to contact position. And you'll talk to your pilots and go, he's 40 feet away, 30 feet, 20 feet, 10, contact. And, and if you need to talk to the guy, say, hey, can you bring it down a little bit? Sometimes, especially if they're new, they'll come in a little high or they'll come in a little low, and you'll mm-hmm. tell them, can you, back out or whatever. But yeah, we're in constant communication.
Now, are they approaching this boom at a fairly quick rate, or are they just barely inching toward it, or how is it a fast thing? Is it an experienced thing? So the pilot really knows how he's coming in at it, and then is there some give in that boom so that it doesn't snap?
Yeah, so there's I'll talk about the boom first. So the boom is, like I said, it's a 20-foot long boom, and it's a hard, rigid steel or aluminum, whatever, metal frame and wrapped in irregular aircraft skin, and so it's hard and rigid, and it's got little, what we call renovators. They're like little wings at the end of it that twist and turn, and so we can fly it left, right, up, down. We can go the limit when we're in contact is 10 degrees to the left, 10 degrees to the right, and then 10 degrees up and down from center. And we can go a lot farther than that, but while in contact, we don't. If they go past that, we disconnect before they get past 10 degrees.
Now, are you the one that disconnects, or is it the pilot from the receiving plane that disconnects?
Either one of us can. Either one of us can. And then there's another tube inside of the boom that extends. It can extend a full 20 feet, but we like it to be around 12 feet. A full extension. That's the center of the envelope.
Wow. So this plane it's close enough that you could wash the windshield.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's like I can see. I can make out if it's someone I know. I can tell you exactly who it is flying the other airplane. I mean, you can see, as they say, the whites of their eyes. I mean, they're close, and so there's a lot of gifts. So as a boom operator, our job is to fly it and guide that boom left and right, up, down, according to the movements of the receiver. You want to keep it in line with the receiver, and then of course, as they get closer, then you extend that inner tube out to where there's a nozzle on the end, and it goes into a receptacle on the top of the receiver aircraft. And once it gets in there, it automatically, actually, there's little toggles that grab hold of the nozzle and hold it in place. And so the give, the boom itself really has no give, except that, you guide it back and forth, left, right, up, down, and going in and out, it has its own natural give, that because it's just on a system that retracts it and extends it. But
now, is that a gravity flow, or are you pumping that fuel into that plane? Is it going fast, or?
Yeah, it's pump. We have 4 fuel pumps that will pump fuel, and we can pump over 10,000 pounds per minute.
But now you're relying on the engineer to tell you when he's getting to capacity, right? Because you wouldn't know.
No, we don't have an engineer. It's actually the pilots are the ones that are watching the fuel panel.
Well, I just assumed that you had a pilot, a co-pilot, and an engineer. So you don't have you don't have an engineer that's watching the fuel.
No, the pilots are watching the fuel.
Yeah. So you're not actually getting topped off. They're letting it get as close as they can without a spillover, right?
Yeah. Well, at a certain point, what will happen is the pressure builds. It's just what it is. The pump will just keep pumping, but the fuel will just stop flowing, and we'll actually get to a point where we'll go, okay, we have no fuel flow.
It's like an automatic shut off at the gas station.
Not quite. No, actually, it's just a matter of the pump will the pump it'll just run. Mm-hmm. The pump will just continue to run, but the fuel won't go anywhere because it can't go anywhere because the airplane is full of fuel. So it's basically as it pumped it until the tank was full, and now the pump can still run even though it's not moving fuel. And so, and of course, it depends on the airplane. Like some airplanes, like a B-1 bomber or a C-5 or something like that, we can give them every ounce of gas we have, and they're still not going to get full. But an F-16, or an F-14 or an A-10 or whatever, like going across the ocean, you'll fill them up several times just getting from Europe back to mainland. So. And you asked about what rate they come in, depending on the size of the airplane. Mm-hmm. Like a C-5, because it has that huge big nose, it has a huge bow wave that actually pushes air up, and it pushes on the bottom of our tail. And if he comes up too fast, it causes our airplane wants to nose down into the path of the C-5. So a C-5 has to come in really slow, where something like an F-16 can just come in a few seconds. He's right in. We don't like it when he comes in too fast, but this is kind of makes you nervous. But the guys who been around for a long time and they're old hats at it, and they'll come in, zip, boom, and zip, they'll come right back out. I mean, I had a guy, I've had him do all kinds of cool stuff, but I had one guy one time, he came in after he's done, he backed out a little bit, went completely inverted, and then did a Emelman, I think is a maneuver, but basically, so he went upside down and reversed it back into the other direction. It was pretty cool to watch. So I've gotten to see some pretty cool things as a boom operator with the Air Force. Some of these guys have put on some pretty cool shows.
Allowed to have a camera with you to take pictures of any of that kind of stuff?
Oh, yeah, and I've got pictures of just about every airplane that's we've ever owned in the Air Force. Yeah.
No, but I mean while you were in the air refueling it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I've taken pictures of airplanes. We're not technically supposed to be taking pictures while we're doing the refueling, but pretty much everybody does, I'm sure. It's always nice when you got someone else there who's in the back with you taking pictures.
Yeah.
But Yeah. So
that sounds really cool. And then Air Force One has that capacity to refuel in the air too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've refueled Air Force One before. Yeah.
Oh, you have? Really? How cool is that?
Yeah, it was back in the late 80s.
Wow. That has to be.
It was when Bush was president.
Yeah, but that's got to be quite a thrill to know that you've got the president of the United States sitting on that plane back there, and you're giving him fuel.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
You don't look at the pilot. You don't look at Colonel Henderson and say, "Hey, listen, I need to talk to George. Could you bring him up front?"
Yeah, could you bring him up front? I just want to say hi.
How cool!
Yeah,
how cool would that be, right?
that would be very, very cool. I gotta. I'll tell you the story. It's just kind of funny. I know you were talking about pictures, and it made me think of back in the day. I was active duty for 4 years, and I was a reservist for 10. But back when I was on active duty, it was the late 80s into the early 90s, and it was before the world got really politically correct. And so I used to carry with me. It was when the vast was all fighter pilots, all bomber pilots, and the vast majority of even like cargo plane pilots were all men, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'd have to listen if it was a cargo plane, I'd have to listen to make sure that the guys were pilots and that it wasn't female pilots. Mm-hmm. But I used to carry a stack of Playboy centerfolds with me. and
well, that gives a whole new meaning to refueling, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so I'd hold those up in the window, and the guys would give me the thumbs up, and they'd grab their camera and they'd take a picture, And I remember this was during, it was actually right after Desert Storm. I was in Turkey, in Incirlik, Turkey, and I actually happened to be at the gym, and I'm working out. And there's these two A-10 pilots that are working out there, and they're talking, and one of them says, "Hey, have you seen that boom that's got the Playboy centerfold?" He's like, "Oh man, I love that guy." Hey, and I didn't say anything to him. I just kind of smiled, and I know what they're talking about. But one time I was no.
Hold that thought. When we come back from our commercial break, you can tell me about that one time. How's that sound?
I'll tell you that one time, and then we'll get to talking about health.
All right, because I want to ask you about a sugar study that was going on too. We'll be right back with our own Sean LaFave and the Geared for Wellness Corner. We got a lot of great show left for you. Don't go away.
If you want to increase your client base and sales, then consider this, the Relationship Building Network at RBN. Given the current economic conditions and challenges, we all need to work smarter, make smarter decisions, invest our hard-earned dollars where it'll yield the best return for our investment. Many business professionals claim that the most effective networking group in Orange County is RBN. No other networking group or organization can offer what RBN offers. Make every year your best year. Join RBN and start reaping the benefits today. Nearly 3,000 businesses have joined RBN and experienced those benefits. Why join RBN? It's one group. It's one membership. It's no renewals. It's all through Orange County. RBN is a freestyle networking group. No mandatory attendance, no restrictions, no rules, and no penalties. Call them at 949-830-5776 or go to their website at rbninfo.com. That's 949-830-5776. If you've ever dreamed of having your own business to make your life secure, Water's Edge Wineries might be just the ticket. In 2004, their founder, Ken Leinberger, created the first winery franchise in California. It was a new concept with all of the functionality of a traditional winery, but without the vineyards. They purchased high-quality grape must from one of the largest winemaking companies in the world. Then they craft each wine carefully and bottle it right at their location. The winery was built to satisfy consumer demand for wine by the bottle and by the glass, but still kept the element of allowing customers to bottle their own custom vintage. Now, they're opening urban wineries across the United States under the brand Water's Edge Wineries. If you've ever dreamed of owning your own winery, it may be in reach right now through Water's Edge Wineries. Just give them a call at 909-468-9463, extension 700. That's Water's Edge Wineries, 909-468-9463. Have you ever found yourself caught between a rock and a hard place? The law offices of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett might be just the answer for you. The attorneys of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett have been serving the Inland Empire since 1989. They're dedicated to the aggressive litigation of civil, criminal, and real estate matters. Over the years, they have recovered tens of millions of dollars for their clients. The firm's practice specializes in litigation of personal injury, accident, slip and fall, real estate, and criminal law cases. The firm provides clients with the care, accuracy, and dedication of experienced attorneys. Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett is located at 10300 4th Street, Suite 150 in Rancho Cucamonga, California. They've been providing the Inland Empire residents with outstanding legal services for over 25 years. They look forward to providing you with aggressive legal representation. Call them at 909-945-5000, where you can talk to a person, not a machine. That's 909-945-5000, the law offices of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett. And now let's get back to our show where we talk about politics, money, and you.
And I am Robert Cardoza. You're listening to Robert Cardoza Live on the Street at the intersection of business and politics. We're at 4 p.m. Pacific time. It's still 68 degrees here in the heart of the Inland Empire in sunny Southern California. It's on its way down to 52 degrees. And if you're listening to us on our globally syndicated network and you're in New York City, well, it's 76 degrees and it is clear. It's also if you have salsa too, by the way. And if you're in Chicago, Illinois, it is 85 degrees and mostly cloudy. But you know what? We're talking to our own Sean LaFave, and Sean could be just about anywhere, but right now he's in Wichita, Kansas. He's going to go out for a Kansas City steak a little bit later. I don't think you can get a Kansas City steak in Kansas, can you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I thought they called them New York steaks in Kansas.
No, I don't know. I thought they called them Casey's Turf.
Yeah, because they call them top sirloin steaks in New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm full of this, useless information.
I gotta go out and look. I didn't even think about it. I'll go to the grocery store, go to the butcher shop, and find out. I'll let you know. I'll update you on that on Thursday. What is today?
All right.
Tuesday, yeah. Thursday.
You can go to the butcher and say, hey, I need to know the difference between a Kansas City steak, a New York steak, and a top sirloin steak. Oh, don't say top sirloin. Yeah.
So anyway, so I'll finish my military story and then we'll move on to sugar because that is a really good article that you sent me. So I told you I had all these Playboy centerfolds that I carried and that was real popular. People loved them. And,
that's pretty amazing for a guy that was in the military that only liked to read the articles.
Well, yeah. That's what I held up. I held up the articles on the backside of the centerfold, not the actual picture. But, it's just for stats, so things you see like beaches and bunny rabbits. But the way I was part of what they call the Air Force is called a wing. And in the wing, we had two squadrons. Well, there's lots of squadrons, but there was the flying squadrons were a B-1 bomber squadron and the KC-135 tanker squadron. And of course, they each squadron had their own commander, and then there was a wing commander who was the commander of the entire wing, all the maintenance and intel and everybody else, right? Well, one day I'm doing a mission, and I'm having on my plane flying with my crew is our squadron commander, and the pilot of the B-1 that I'm going to be refueling is the squadron commander for the B-1, but also the wing commander who happens to be a B-1 pilot also. Mm. So I've got the two pilots that are going to be looking up at me are the squadron commander for the B-1 and the wing commander for the entire wing. And then my crew is going to be flying our airplane, but we're also going to have Colonel Jack, what's his name? He's
no pressure on you, huh?
No pressure on me, right? Yeah, exactly. I got the three biggest guys in the whole base out flying with me, one in my plane and two that are going to be, 30 feet away from me, looking me eyeball to eyeball while I'm refueling. So I thought, well, this might not be the best time to pull off the centerfold. I'll be on my best behavior. So I'm back there. I'm doing my refueling. We get hooked up, and about a few minutes after we start refueling, Colonel Jack, who's our squadron commander, he comes back. He's like, "Hey, Boom, how's it going back here?" I said, "Oh, doing great, sir. Everything's going wonderful." He's like, "I just came back here to watch," and he's watching for about a minute. He goes, "Hey, Boom, where's that clipboard of yours? And I was like, because what it was one of those, you've seen those, like they're like a clipboard, but it's made out of metal and it folds up, and you can stuff a bunch of, like, it's got like compartments and everything in it, and so I said, it's right there, sir. He's like, oh, okay, cool. And he opens it up and he starts flipping through my centerfolds. And he's like, oh, he's like, all of a sudden he's like, ooh, that's a good one. And he starts holding up these centerfolds in the window. So I was like, well, I guess today is a good day to bring the centerfolds.
Well, yeah, but you're a lucky guy, because it wasn't you that pulled them out.
It wasn't me that pulled them out, so I couldn't get in trouble at all. But he held up, I think 2 or 3 of his favorites out of the stack and showed them. So I thought, this is not something you could get away with today, for sure. Back then you could, but
January through December, right?
January through December. And I think it was January through December for a good 2 years worth. But so anyway, but the military used to be a lot of fun. It's very much a different animal nowadays than it used to be. But I tell you what, I've got some great memories, and I had a lot of good times, even when I was deployed, overseas for wars or whatever else. But, anyway, so you want to talk about sugar?
Well, you know what? I'm just a little dumbfounded at what money can buy.
Well, I'm not anymore. There was a time I used to be, but yeah.
Go ahead and tell the story.
Okay. Oh, you want me to lead off? So basically, this study talks about how the sugar industry really paid off, researchers to give the results that they wanted. And of course they were talking about, one of the things that they were speaking specifically on here was heart disease, and they really wanted the emphasis to be on, saturated fats and cholesterol and those types of things, and how the sugar industry paid Harvard researchers. This was back in the 50s? I remember the 60s. I'm sorry, in the early 60s. Paid them off what would have been the equivalent today of about close to $49,000 to basically do this research project and come out with the conclusion that the goal is to reduce saturated fats and cholesterol, and that really sugar played no part in heart disease. And the article was published in 1967, and it said that there was no doubt that reducing cholesterol and saturated fat was the only dietary intervention needed to prevent heart disease, and that in fact there was no need to reduce your sugar intake. Yeah, because the study downplayed the effects of sugar, and so basically the sugar industry bought the research that they wanted, and it was published, and it was put out by a Harvard research project. And so when people, when I talk to people, it's funny that you sent this, because I've been teaching this for, I don't even know how many years, at least 10 years I've been talking about this. And there was a time when I believed this, that you've got to reduce your fat intake, that you've got to, eat good carbs and eat lean meats and all this other stuff. And there was a time that I believed that that's what it took to be lean and fit and healthy. And I don't believe that anymore. And this study, this article shows you exactly why myself and so many others believed that, was because we were paid to believe that. The researchers were paid to teach us to believe that. And the fact is, this article even goes on to say, well, sugar does play a part in heart disease, but the article also says that we're not really sure why. Well, I can tell you why. The why is very clear, so I don't know why they can't figure it out. But the why is sugar is very inflammatory, and heart disease is a disease of chronic inflammation. And the more sugar you eat, the more chronic inflammation you're going to have in your body. And so when people look at cholesterol, in fact, I literally had this discussion with someone yesterday. It was a Facebook discussion, but she posted an article, or not an article, but a picture of her and her dad, and who passed away in his, I want to say, late 50s. And she said, Dad, I miss you. And then the same status went on to talk about, make sure that, for all of you out there, make sure you understand what you're getting into when dealing with cholesterol drugs and those kind of things, and heart disease, and one of her friends asked a question, said, well, what do you mean? What's wrong with them? And so I went on I kind of posted a response about how, there is zero connection between cholesterol and heart disease. And the problem with the cholesterol drugs is that they reduce cholesterol in a way that's very unnatural, but cholesterol is something that we need. 25% of our brain is cholesterol. The lipid bilayer, the membrane around each and every single cell in our body is made up of cholesterol and saturated fats. And so when you reduce that, you're messing with that lipid bilayer, but you're also messing with the brain. And so I went on to talk a little bit on how this had implications for all kinds of chronic conditions, including dementia and other diseases. And not knowing a single thing about this woman, and she's actually someone I graduated high school with, that I haven't talked to her since high school, and I don't even interact with her on Facebook very often. It's just a weird thing that I just happened to notice her status and her friend's question about it. And she came back and said, "Thank you, Sean, for your words." She goes, "That's exactly right." Her father died of a mysterious brain disease. She goes, and I hate to call it a disease, but his brain didn't stop functioning. He was on cholesterol-lowering drugs. He got paralysis. He had blood sugar problems. He had all kinds of issues, and he had brain problems. And he eventually died 2 years after being diagnosed with all of these issues. And so what we've done is through studies like this that are completely false, they're 100% a lie, we've created a society that believes that if you reduce fat, cholesterol, saturated fats in your diet, that you're going to be a healthier person. Well, the fact is now we've got drugs to give you that if you don't want to do it on your own. You can just take a drug to reduce it. And we know now that even I can't imagine that the drug companies aren't aware of the fact that they're creating damage, but they're also creating income for themselves, and so they're not going to stop. But reducing cholesterol is not the answer. Cholesterol is an anti-inflammatory. And so when you look at heart disease and people go, oh, well, this person has heart disease and they have elevated cholesterol, and all of a sudden they see this repeated over and over again, they go, well, cholesterol creates heart disease. And the fact is, it's actually exactly the opposite. The inflammation that creates heart disease is also what is creating the increase in the need for cholesterol, because cholesterol is a natural anti-inflammatory.
Doesn't it just aggravate you as opposed to, I was going to say incense you, that the general well-being of human beings don't enter into the efficacy of these studies at all? It's just the good old sawbuck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's mortifying. There are days that I come home, or days I'll go to these seminars, or I'll read articles, and I'll just sit there and I'll just think to myself, we're doomed. And it's like, it literally feels like, and I've used this term here recently in the last couple of weeks, and I'm not sure why, things are maybe getting overwhelming for me, I guess, at times, but, it feels like Sisyphus, like there's no way to win, because you're fighting against multi-billion dollars of marketing and research that give us the answers that they want us to have.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, back in when we were talking about putting together dietary guidelines in our country, and I think this was actually in the 60s, if I remember correctly, it was Senator McGovern from South Dakota was in charge of that. And because of studies like this, he actually came out with guidelines that said to reduce your fat intake, to eat less. One of the words that he used was eat less fatty meats. Okay, which according to the research was an accurate thing to tell people to do, even though, big picture, it was wrong. But still, it was an accurate thing according to the research that had been done, this type of research that had been funded to give us a lie. And the meat industry were up in arms, and they said, you either fix your guidelines or you will never be an elected official again ever in our, because he's in South Dakota, where, you got tons of ranchers out there, and they're all dependent on people eating meat. And so he he didn't do quite a reversal, but he changed the terminology from eat less fatty meats to eat more lean meats. So we've got something that sounds kind of the same, but really it's very different in this terminology. Instead of eating less, now it says eat more. And so people hear the words eat more and they go, all right, this is cool, I get to eat more. And you know, the fact was he wanted you to cut down on your dietary fat intake. And it ended up ruining his career anyway, even though he did change his tone. He did end up losing his career out of it anyway. But the meat industry made it very clear that you'll either word this in a very different way or we are going to get rid of you. And they ended up getting rid of him anyway. So, you know, it's just, you know, when you look at this is why I tell people you can't trust the government. You can't trust these studies. You know, you've got to stop and sometimes and just go, you know, what makes sense? What has worked for thousands of years with human beings? You know, well, human beings haven't eaten sugar for thousands of years and lived to tell about it. They've eaten animal fat for thousands of years. They've drank milk for thousands of years. In fact, the first thing that we get when we're born is milk from mom. And what is it comprised of? Mostly it's got sugars, but it's also got a lot of saturated fat. Right. In it, you know, I mean, that's what makes a healthy baby is good saturated fat from mama's milk. And so, you know, it's hard to fight a system where the government is saying do something, but they're being fed the lies from big lobbyists, from even the companies like the sugar industry. You know,
yeah. Like, can you imagine?
Yeah. I mean, the sugar industry of all industries, like they shouldn't even, sugar is so delicious that you shouldn't have to put out a study to convince people to eat it.
Well, that's for sure. But, I mean, you know, you would think, well, you know what? They put out a study because they wanted to pull the wool over somebody's eyes, but it wasn't even an issue. I don't even know why they bothered.
I don't either, but they, you know.
Oh, when I say it wasn't an issue, I mean it wasn't a controversial issue at the moment.
Yeah, no, back in the 60s it wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, the sugar intake wasn't a big issue. You know, it wasn't something that we had gotten to the point where it's become practically a mainstay of our diet. You know, nowadays, you know, we eat so much sugar on average as Americans that it's unbelievable.
Well, you know, it's interesting because, you know, I don't eat a lot of sugar, or at least when I say this, I say this in kind of like quotes, right? I drink black coffee. I don't drink soda pops. I eat very few desserts, things like that. But the truth is that there's a lot of foods that I eat that have sugars in them. There's no way to avoid sugar. Not totally anyway. But you know what? I don't do it on purpose. I just don't have a sweet tooth. Although I'm not going to lie. I mean, I love to have a Butterfinger, a candy bar once in a while, or a frozen Snickers, you know.
I love Butterfingers.
A bowl of sugar frosted flakes couldn't hurt you once in a while.
Once in a while. And that's just it. That's why it's called a treat. You know, like, we're gonna treat ourselves to, you know, something, and it's not called a staple, it's called a treat, you know, and so once in a while it is absolutely fine, but when it becomes something that's, you know, you have to bribe your kids to finish their peas and you'll let them have dessert afterwards.
Well, you know what a staple is, right? A staple is that thing that you had to remove to get the centerfold out of those Playboy magazines without ripping it all up.
I became an artist with that, by the way. Yes, that's exactly what a staple is.
Hey, listen, what are we going to talk about when we come back from this next commercial break?
Well, you know, I've got, you sent me some more articles that we can definitely talk about, but I've got, I want to talk about two things. One, an outbreak of mumps, and I also want to talk about a mercury, the elemental mercury, and a mercury spill at a school that ended up shutting the school down and forcing kids to stay overnight for contamination purposes.
Oh, wow, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be right back with our own Sean LaFave, the Geared for Wellness Corner. We're going to see if your horoscope is in Mercury, or if you are done with your sugar high, or what the hell? We're just going to talk about health. Don't worry about it. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Isn't it time to shine the spotlight on your expertise? The Interview, starring you. Here's your chance to capture 5 minutes of fame with The Interview. This isn't just any interview. This is your opportunity to showcase your expertise and position yourself as a trusted expert in a one-on-one video interview hosted by Robert Cardoza, host of the nationally syndicated show Robert Cardoza Live and powered by AHA Studios. What is it? A professionally recorded video for your use. Robert Cardoza interviews you on the set where he records his show. Professional interview showcases your expertise and value, shot in a state-of-the-art studio. And what's in it for you? Gain credibility as an expert, earn the trust of your target market, educate in a way that intrigues your audience, gain a powerful marketing tool that offers dozens of uses, website, video sharing sites, social media, email, DVDs, direct mail, lobby video, resumes, profile building, all that kind of stuff. Association with the nationally syndicated celebrity. That's right. And let's talk about AHA Studios. AHA is a strategic marketing firm that leverages the powerful and visual persuasion to help your business create powerful messages that connect with your target market. AHA ventures way beyond strategy, delivering the marketing collateral you need to start driving a new business through your doors. AHA has a full-service, in-house, state-of-the-art production studio to bring your messages to life using video. Discover how to make The Interview work for you. Call 949-831-2222. That's 949-831-2222. AHA Image Studios Incorporated. Dr. Stephen Tidwell, General Family Dentistry in a caring, personalized environment. Here at Dr. Tidwell's office, we are dedicated to helping you keep your teeth healthy. We are a state-of-the-art dental practice that still believes in traditional values, such as excellent customer service and individual attention. We have a special welcoming offer for you for just $39. A complete exam, personal consultation, professional cleaning, and all necessary x-rays. That's a $266 value for $39. Dr. Tidwell has 2 convenient locations and experienced staff to provide you with professional care and personal attention that you deserve. Call today. Don't delay. A great smile another day. Call 909-944-7308. That's 909-944-7308 for Rancho Cucamonga or San Bernardino. Joel Saltzman is Dr. Wireless. He has turned his considerable expertise into consumer credit risk and wireless security into a highly specialized independent web-based consulting enterprise targeting consumer credit risk analysis and wireless transactional security and monitoring. He works as a wireless analyst, veteran independent agent, and consumer liaison for most wireless telecom carriers and equipment manufacturers. For more than 20 years, corporate and private clients and media audiences have counted on his unvarnished advice while weighing the technology, performance, and cost differences between Sprint, Nextel, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Joel specializes in setting up mobile wireless hotspots to be used for disaster preparedness, business continuity, and mobile wireless merchant processing solutions. Call Dr. Wireless at 310-400-4900 or go to his webpage at drwireless.com. Again, call 310-400-4900 or his webpage at drwireless.com. You'll be glad you did. And now, back to our show.
And I am Robert Cardoza. You're listening to Robert Cardoza Live on the street at the intersection of business and politics. We're at 4:22 p.m. Pacific time. You know what? It's still 68 degrees outside here at the heart of the Inland Empire in sunny Southern California. It's on its way down to 54 degrees, it says now. But you know what? If you're listening to us on our globally syndicated network and you happen to be in Gay Paris in Paris, France, well, it's 73 degrees and it is clear. Now, the bad news is it's also 1:23 in the morning. It's time for you to get back to your hotel. If you're in Rome, Italy, it's 68 degrees and it is clear. And you know what? And all these romantic Italians are coming out in the woodwork. So be careful when you're out there. But I'll tell you somebody never to be careful of. He'll never lie to you, and they'll give you great information. That's our own Sean LaFave and his Geared for Wellness Corner. Hey, Sean, you got the microphone.
All right. So just a few days ago, there was in Las Vegas, there was a school that was shut down, and the kids were locked into the school, and they had to stay overnight And I think it was for about 17 hours was how long this event took, because someone spilled mercury, elemental mercury. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was from a science class or what. But and the amount of mercury, this is the funny thing, the amount of mercury was they said a matter of drops, probably about the equivalent of what you would find in a mercury thermometer. And to put that in perspective,
and that wound up quarantining the school.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, because it is considered such. In fact, mercury is the most toxic non-radioactive substance on the face of the planet. The only thing more toxic to the human body than mercury is actually uranium. So it is very, very toxic. It's a very powerful neurotoxin. It will actually destroy nerves. Like a lot of, like lead, for instance, will go in and it is a nerve disruptor, a neurological disruptor. It disrupts hormones and all kinds of neurological functions and even IQ and on and on. But it won't actually destroy the actual nerve endings, like the nerve cells themselves. Mercury will go in and it will actually destroy nerves. It will actually eat them up and disintegrate them. So it's pretty bad stuff. But the thing that's interesting is the amount of mercury that you find in an elemental mercury thermometer is about the same as an average, maybe slightly larger than average size filling that someone would have in their mouth from a mercury, or what they call silver fillings. Mm-hmm. And I just, the whole thing that I found interesting about this was, they got this mercury. It was exposed. They did find out some kids were playing with it, and they literally, it was 1,200 kids were locked down in this school for, like I said, some of them were there for up to 17 hours.
Wow.
Because of a little bit of mercury, and they had to have hazmat teams come in. The fire department, were there, and they literally swabbed people. They had their shoes and backpacks went into a separate bag to be tested, and they did swab everything from their feet to their face to their hands and everything to see if how much exposure these kids had to this mercury, and it's a big deal, And the thing that really struck me was, how is it that a little spill, the amount of a mercury you would find in a thermometer, which is really,
what bothers me is that they have you sticking this thing either in your mouth or in your ass, and it's filled with all this toxic stuff.
That's exactly where I was going. But they'll tell you that this is perfectly safe to have in a vaccination or to have in a filling that they put in your teeth. They still, to this day, will put in people's teeth. And when it, matter of fact, my very best friend here in Wichita is a dentist, and he practices amalgam free. He'll take the amalgams out, but he won't put them in people's teeth. He uses only the composite fillings. Mm-hmm. And they are more expensive, but he just refuses. And he said, we were talking one day, and he said, Sean, he goes, I bought this practice from an older doctor, and he goes, I was going through the drawers one day, and this guy actually made his own amalgam fillings. And what they do is you literally have the mercury shipped to you, and it's shipped in a container that says it's a hazardous material, and it has to be handled as a hazardous material. And then you get another container that has basically silver that's been ground into like a powder, and there's some copper, and there's some I think it's tin, and you section it all out, and it's just over 50% of it is mercury, and you put and the rest of the other half is mostly silver, and then there's a little bit of mercury and some, it's either tin or nickel, but I want to say it's tin. Maybe it's nickel. Anyway, that doesn't matter. And the mercury dissolves these other metals that have been shaved into a fine shaving, and then it turns into a paste. And so this doctor used to make his own amalgam fillings. It's cheaper than buying the amalgam fillings already made. And he said, he goes, I opened the drawer, and there was a vial there filled with mercury. And he said, I'm sitting there holding this thing, and I'm looking at it, and I realized if I took this vial of mercury and I walked outside and I threw it into the street and it broke and it got on the street, he said they would shut the street down. They would cordon it off. They would bring in a hazmat crew to clean it up. They would make sure there was no trace of it left on the road anywhere. But they're telling me that it's perfectly safe to put into a child's mouth or an adult's mouth or anybody's mouth. You know, and he goes, I realized that why would anybody put this in another person's mouth, you know? And so he made that decision that he would never use them anymore because he realized how toxic of a substance this is. And this is just proof right here. You know, just a few drops of this stuff was enough to shut down an entire school and make the kids weren't even allowed to leave. You know, they had to set up, you know, special arrangements so that the parents, you know, needed to get their drugs to them. It was handled by, you know, someone who would come out, you know, like a fire department, whatever, would help assist with things like that. But how we can sit there and say, yes, this is dangerous and how horrible. And these parents, of course, are horrified that their kids were exposed to mercury. But I wonder how many of them give vaccinations to their kids with mercury in them. How many have kids with mercury fillings in their teeth? Because this really is a very dangerous, neurotoxin, and it will create massive neurotoxic effects. Yeah. And I just thought this was an interesting episode for this to happen and for it to make, you know, big headline news and become an actual real, you know, I'm sure in Las Vegas it was probably all over the papers, but oh, yeah. I just found that to be interesting. But yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head then. You went exactly where I was going with this. How is it that the entire school system loses their mind over a few drops of this stuff, but we're still putting it in people's bodies to this day. We're still putting it in their teeth. We've been doing it for 150 plus years, you know, and we know what a toxic substance it is. But it's when it comes to the dentist, it's declared, even if it's already pre-mixed, it's still considered a hazardous material and it has to be handled as such. Once it's in your tooth, the American Dental Association says it's perfectly safe. No problem. Once they take it out of your tooth, then once again it becomes reclassified as a hazardous material and has to be handled as such. You can't, you know, throw it away or, you know, it can't get in the sink or the toilet or anything like that. It's got to be put into a special container and taken away as a hazardous material and disposed of in the proper method.
Wow.
Yeah, stuff like that just it boggles my mind. But I just thought that was a really interesting story.
Now they also there's a certain element of mercury content in seafood or in some fish, right?
Yeah. So and of course the larger the fish, like tuna is a really big fish. The larger the fish, usually the more mercury you're going to find in it. That's why people say stay away from tuna, but there's actually a lot of different fish that you got to be careful with. I think mackerel is one, and there's I can't remember the whole list. I've actually got a list of it somewhere. Mm-hmm. But it's due to what they call the law of biological concentration. You know, a little fish, which, you know, mostly eats, you know, algae or you know, plankton or whatever it eats. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really get a lot of mercury. It gets a little bit, but not a lot. But then the bigger the fish that's bigger than it eats that fish, and it eats all the mercury from all the little fish, and then a fish bigger than him, and it keeps going down. And so biological, this stuff concentrates in the bigger the fish, the more mercury you're going to find in it because it binds up in their bodies. And so we do know, and the problem with what they'll tell you why the mercury that we find in fish, which is methyl mercury, meaning it has been methylated, they'll say is more dangerous than elemental mercury, than the mercury you would find in vaccines or in amalgam fillings, because they say the methylation changes the way it absorbs in your body, and it changes the way it affects your neurological function and all these different things. And that's actually true. It is more dangerous. The problem, though, is what the very thing that methylates is the bacteria. Bacteria actually methylates the mercury to change the structure slightly. Well, those same bacteria are everywhere. They're in our gut. And so you can actually and when your body is detoxing, it takes toxins, it dumps them into the gut so it can get rid of them through going to the bathroom. And so now you've got this elemental mercury that maybe, you know, you've been chewing on something and you know, little bits and pieces of your amalgam filling, or maybe just a plain old straight up vapor, because the stuff does vaporize, you know, it slowly off gases, you know, that gets in your digestive system, and now your body has all these bacteria. We've got, you know, trillions of bacteria in our gut, and all of a sudden now they're doing their job and they're methylating this mercury and they're converting it into methyl mercury, and now we've got the same problem we would have as if we were eating fish. So, you know, the American Medical Association really wants to, you know, put the emphasis on don't eat fish, because fish is dangerous. It's got enough of mercury, but the fact is, all forms of mercury are dangerous, and the World Health Organization will tell you the number one source of mercury is from fish, and then the second is from amalgam fillings.
Wow.
So, yeah, wow. and I'm honestly surprised that it's from fish, but I'll take it. That's what they say. That's what they say. So, yeah, fish definitely has mercury in it, but that's something you can control. You can eat. Don't eat tuna more than once or twice a week. Stick with the smaller fish. Salmon is great. Atlantic is better than Pacific, especially right now after.
Oh, why is that, Sean? Why is that?
It's just because of all the dumping. I think it has something to do with the currents and the way the currents. It's actually the Atlantic is getting worse, but it has to do with all the dumping that's happened from us and from Japan and from China and even Russia. All the dumping off the east coast of Russia and off of China and Japan and so on. And of course we've dumped stuff and basically we've put a lot of mercury waste into the Pacific Ocean, and it's gotten into everything. It's in the algae now, and like I said, the little fish eat the algae, and it keeps just going up from there to the big fish. So yeah, the Pacific Ocean, and of course the Pacific Ocean now is contaminated with radioactive material from Fukushima, which is still, by the way, to this day, that's been 10 years? I don't know how long it's been now, but it is still to this day still leaking radioactive material into the Pacific Ocean, and right off the coast of California, we've got radioactive isotopes right there in the kelp beds off of Southern California that they've been able to track, and I don't know how they're able to.
Is that because of Japan, or is that because of San Onofre?
No, that's because of Fukushima from Japan. They're actually able to tell you when they can get a radioactive isotope. They can, I don't know how they look at it structurally. I don't understand how it works, but they can tell you where it came from. And this stuff came from Fukushima. It's not uranium. I can't think of what metal it is. Anyway, we have radioactive material in our kelp beds in Southern California. Specifically from Fukushima.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and they're finding, even up in Alaska, they're finding, droves of dead whales, that are just drifting up on the shore, and they're filled with radioactive material. And so we have a big problem, especially in the Pacific Ocean. It goes way beyond mercury, but mercury is a huge problem. Yeah. So for us to say that, even if let's say the fish is a bigger problem than the fillings, well, why add to the problem? Is always my question.
Why aren't they doing something to protect us? Because you're either going to eat you either eat meat or you eat fish or you eat a balance of both of those. I think that there's probably a smaller amount of true vegetarians. I suppose if you eat fish, would you be considered a vegetarian if you eat fish?
No, if you eat only fish and no other types of meat, you're considered a pescatarian. Yeah.
So the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan is a vegan only eats vegetables.
Yeah. Yeah, a vegan will not eat anything from animals. Like a vegetarian will have
nothing with a face on it.
Nothing even that came from something with a face on it. Yeah. Like milk is obviously not. You don't have to kill the animal, but they won't do anything with milk, no dairy at all. Like they won't eat gelatin, for instance. There's like I've even had clients of mine that if the supplements that I'm giving them are made from gel caps, which is all of the really good reputable nutrition companies, they do veggie caps, which is gelatin made from the vegetable base instead of from, animal gelatin. But I've had patients that will literally take the capsule, break it open and take whatever's inside of it without taking the capsule because they're that. And there are vegans, hardcore vegans, who will not eat honey even because it's made by bees.
Wow. My friend, listen, tell me what we're going to talk about on Thursday.
Well, I think on Thursday I'm going to track this and I'm going to see this just started happening just here the last couple days, but there's a case right now of 67 confirmed cases of mumps in Arkansas, and
would that be considered an outbreak?
That would be considered an outbreak, and they're every single one of the kids who has mumps have been vaccinated. There's not one single case.
Oh, wow. How interesting. Okay, so,
I'll follow this in the next couple of days, and we'll talk about this on Thursday, and then I'm sure we didn't even get to any of the articles you sent me, except you did the sugar one, but we'll talk more about either these, or you can send me some more. We'll figure it out.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, listen, this has been a fascinating show, as always. You always make it interesting. Go out, have a wonderful evening. You're probably done for the evening, or getting close to being done for the evening. And, have a cocktail for me. And then when I get off the air, I'll have one for you.
That sounds like a plan. I love it. Robert, I had a great time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Take care. Now, the rest of you folks, stick around, because when we come back, we'll be doing the birthdays for the day, the secret daily teaching for your life, the Harvard business tip of the day, and interesting but useless facts. And then right after that, yeah, you got it, our tribute to the late, great Paul Harvey and the rest of the story. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
If you want to increase your client base and sales, then consider this, the Relationship Building Network at RBN. Given the current economic conditions and challenges, we all need to work smarter, make smarter decisions, invest our hard-earned dollars where it'll yield the best return for our investment. Many business professionals claim that the most effective networking group in Orange County is RBN. No other networking group or organization can offer what RBN offers. Make every year your best year. Join RBN and start reaping the benefits today. Nearly 3,000 businesses have joined RBN and experienced those benefits. Why join RBN? It's one group. It's one membership. It's no renewals. It's all through Orange County. RBN is a freestyle networking group. No mandatory attendance, no restrictions, no rules, and no penalties. Call them at 949-830-5776 or go to their website at rbninfo.com. That's 949-830-5776. If you've ever dreamed of having your own business to make your life secure, Water's Edge Wineries might be just the ticket. In 2004, their founder, Ken Lineberger, created the first winery franchise in California. It was a new concept with all of the functionality of a traditional winery, but without the vineyards. They purchase high-quality grape must from one of the largest winemaking companies in the world. Then they craft each wine carefully and bottle it right at their location. The winery was built to satisfy consumer demand for wine by the bottle and by the glass, but still kept the element of allowing customers to bottle their own custom vintage. Now, they're opening urban wineries across the United States under the brand Water's Edge Wineries. If you've ever dreamed of owning your own winery, it may be in reach right now through Water's Edge Wineries. Just give them a call at 909-468-9463, extension 700. That's Water's Edge Wineries, 909-468-9463. Have you ever found yourself caught between a rock and a hard place? The law offices of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett might be just the answer for you. The attorneys of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett have been serving the Inland Empire since 1989. They're dedicated to the aggressive litigation of civil, criminal, and real estate matters. Over the years, they have recovered tens of millions of dollars for their clients. The firm's practice specializes in litigation of personal injury, accident, slip and fall, real estate, and criminal law cases. The firm provides clients with the care, accuracy, and dedication of experienced attorneys. Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett is located at 10300 4th Street, Suite 150 in Rancho Cucamonga, California. They've been providing the Inland Empire residents with outstanding legal services for over 25 years. They look forward to providing you with aggressive legal representation. Call them at 909-945-5000, where you can talk to a person, not a machine. That's 909-945-5000, the law offices of Blomberg, Benson, and Garrett. And now let's get back to our show where we talk about politics, money, and you.
And I am Robert Cardoza. You're listening to Robert Cardoza live on the street at the intersection of business and politics. And it is time for our Harvard business tip of the day. And the management tip today is, when expressing gratitude, don't focus on yourself. You know what? Practicing gratitude, making a deliberate point of being thankful for the positive things in your life is good for your happiness and well-being. But when we express our gratitude to others, we have a tendency to talk about ourselves when we should be thinking about them. Often, when we get help and support, we want to talk about how the favor made us feel. Well, it let me relax, or it makes me happy, But expressing gratitude shouldn't be all about you. Helpers want to see themselves positively and to feel understood and cared for, which is difficult for them to do if you won't stop talking about yourself. So, next time that you thank someone, try other praising instead. Acknowledge and validate your benefactor's actions. You go out of your way, or you're really good at doing so, will strengthen your relationship with that person. Guaranteed. You know what? Stop talking about yourself. You already know it all. About yourself anyway. How about this? You know what? It's time for us to talk about that secret daily teaching for your life. You've heard me say it. It's all about a positive mental attitude. You decide what's going to happen in your life. No one else does. You know what? You're not predestined to anything except what you want to have happen. You get up in the morning, you look in the mirror, you say you're going to have a great, profitable day today, and you're going to be happy. You're going to be happy instead of sad. You're going to be successful instead of a failure. You're going to be rich instead of poor. You decide how these things are going to be, and then you make it happen. Well, our teaching for today is how it will happen, how the universe will bring it to you is not your concern or your job. Allow the universe to do it for you. When you're trying to work out how it will happen, you're emitting a frequency that contains a lack of faith, that you don't believe that you have it already. You think you have to do it, and you don't believe that the universe will do it for you. The how is not your part in the creative process. It's the believing. If you believe it, it'll happen. I promise you. That's just the way it is. Yeah. Well, you know what today is? Sure you do. Today is, let's see, what the heck is today? I think, today is Tuesday, September the 13th, and it is somebody's birthday. Okay, we've got some profound birthdays for today, so you know what? We might as well just get right to them. And let's start off with this first one. The first one is a fellow born in 1916, passed away in 1990, a writer whose books include Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach. And happy birthday to Roald Dahl. And here's a fella born in 1952, a disco and pop singer, and was the original cowboy from Village People. Happy birthday, Randy Jones. And finally, here's a guy that hopefully you all know, born in 1967, a retired sprinter who won 4 gold medals and was crowned world champion 8 times. Happy birthday, Michael Johnson. Yeah. Well, what do you suppose happened today in history? Well, I'm about to tell you. Here's the thing. On September the 13th, 1503, Michelangelo begins work on his Statue of David. Can you imagine? If you've never seen it, it is magnificent. And in 1898, Hannibal Goodwin patents celluloid photographic film. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Think about it. And in 1989, the largest anti-apartheid march in South Africa, led by Bishop Desmond Tutu. And then finally in 1994, Ulysses' probe passes the sun's south pole. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the quote for today. The quote comes from Terry Filler, and Terry says, "Experience is what you get when you don't get what you want." Now, that is profound. That is a fact. You can count on that. Well, you know what? It's time for our interesting but useless facts. We've got a couple extra minutes for it, so let's get right to it. Let me give you a few. You'll enjoy these. I guarantee that. Did you know that Mexico City boasts the world's largest taxi fleet with over 60,000 taxis running every day? Yeah, you thought it was New York City, didn't you? Yeah. No way, folks. No way. How about this? You know, the average person over 50 will have spent 5 years waiting in line. Give that some thought. Wow. And did you know that income tax was unconstitutional in the United States until 1 year before the U.S. joined World War I? That was 1913. Yeah. Unconstitutional. We need to go back and do some things that used to work in the old days. How about this? Did you know that Wilma Flintstone's maiden name was Wilma Shagopal, and Betty Rubble's maiden name was Betty Jean McBurney? worker. I don't even know why anybody cares. Can you imagine the people who put these things together? They have just got to get a life, for God's sakes. How about this? The average capacity of a pelican's pouch is 12 quarts. Wow. 12 quarts. Well, you know what? Did you know that humans are the only primates that do not have pigment in the palms of their hands? Yeah, only humans. And here's, I might or might not leave you with this one. The oldest known breed of domesticated dog is the Saluki. Now, carvings of animals resembling the Saluki have been found in excavations of the Sumerian Empire, believed to date from somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 BC. Now, give that some thought. Well, I will leave you with this one. Frogs in the wild face many dangers and are lucky to survive several years. In captivity, however, frogs can live for much, much longer. Now, with that, we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to do our tribute to the late, great Paul Harvey and the rest of the story. You don't want to miss this. We've got a great story. The story today is going to be the violinist who nearly became the president of Israel. I'll tell you all about it after these brief messages. Don't go away.
Isn't it time to shine the spotlight on your expertise? The Interview, starring you. Here's your chance to capture 5 minutes of fame with The Interview. This isn't just any interview. This is your opportunity to showcase your expertise and position yourself as a trusted expert in a one-on-one video interview hosted by Robert Cardoza, host of the nationally syndicated show Robert Cardoza Live and powered by AHA Studios. What is it? A professionally recorded video for your use. Robert Cardoza interviews you on the set where he records his show. Professional interview showcases your expertise and value, shot in a state-of-the-art studio. And what's in it for you? Gain credibility as an expert, earn the trust of your target market, educate in a way that intrigues your audience, gain a powerful marketing tool that offers dozens of uses, website, video sharing sites, social media, email, DVDs, direct mail, lobby video, resumes, profile building, all that kind of stuff. Association with the nationally syndicated celebrity. That's right. And let's talk about AHA Studios. AHA is a strategic marketing firm that leverages the powerful in visual persuasion to help your business create powerful messages that connect with your target market. AHA ventures way beyond strategy, delivering the marketing collateral you need to start driving a new business through your doors. AHA has a full-service, in-house, state-of-the-art production studio to bring your messages to life using video. Discover how to make The Interview work for you. Call 949-831-2222. That's 949-831-2222. AHA Image Studios, Incorporated. Dr. Stephen Tidwell, Dental Family Dentistry in a caring, personalized environment. Here at Dr. Tidwell's office, we are dedicated to helping you keep your teeth healthy. We are a state-of-the-art dental practice that still believes in traditional values, such as excellent customer service and individual attention. We have a special welcoming offer for you for just $39, a complete exam, personal consultation, professional cleaning, and all necessary x-rays. That's a $266 value for $39. Dr. Tidwell has 2 convenient locations and experienced staff to provide you with professional care and personal attention that you deserve. Call today. Don't delay. A great smile another day. Call 909-944-7308. That's 909-944-7308 for Rancho Cucamonga or San Bernardino. Joel Saltzman is Dr. Wireless. He has turned his considerable expertise into consumer credit risk and wireless security into a highly specialized independent web-based consulting enterprise targeting consumer credit risk analysis and wireless transactional security and monitoring. He works as a wireless analyst, veteran independent agent, and consumer liaison for most wireless telecom carriers and equipment manufacturers. For more than 20 years, corporate and private clients and media audiences have counted on his unvarnished advice while weighing the technology, performance, and cost differences between Sprint, Nextel, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Joel specializes in setting up mobile wireless hotspots to be used for disaster preparedness, business continuity, and mobile wireless merchant processing solutions. Call Dr. Wireless at 310-400 4900, or go to his webpage at drwireless.com. Again, call 310-400-4900 or his webpage at drwireless.com. You'll be glad you did. And now, back to our show.
And I am Robert Cardoza. You're listening to Robert Cardoza live on the street at the intersection of business and politics. And it's time for our tribute to the late, great Paul Harvey and the rest of the story. The biggest and best voice in America reveals the startling heartbeats behind the headlines. You know, Paul Harvey was one of America's favorite radio and TV commentators, heard on over 775 ABC radio stations and over 400 foreign stations, seen on 110 television stations and read in 300 newspapers, recipient of numerous awards and honors, including 9 honorary degrees. He's on the Gallup polls list of America's most admired men and famous for the rest of the story. Well, Paul's story today is the violinist who nearly became President of Israel. You know, Christmas Eve in Princeton, New Jersey usually fulfills the picture postcard promise of Christmas. And it was so on that one particular Christmas Eve long ago. Church bells pealed in the distance, a light snowfall kissed the quaint Princeton houses, and door-to-door carolers singers made their way to one particular door, the violinist's home, the gentle violinist. O little town of Bethlehem, the boys sang, how still we see thee lie. In moments the door opened, and the gentle old violinist stood in the doorway to greet the carolers. Above the deep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by. The musician turned away, turned back into the house. Shortly he reappeared with his violin. There he completed a picture too intimate for a postcard, a sound too inspiring for any but this story. The great man, the gentle old musician, accompanied the midnight carolers on his beloved instrument through each verse of the old age hymn. Then, without a word to break the spell, the young people turned away silently, and the old man slowly closed the door. At once, there was only the distant pealing of the bells and the snowfall. And if this true story, this real life seen from a year-long past, if it is made more wonderful, it is not because a seasoned violin was brought out of retirement for one last spontaneous recital, but because the violinist himself had the best reason of all not to celebrate that snowy Christmas scene. The great genius was a Jew, and so revered was that the very presidency of Israel once could have been his. But here is the rest of the story. Musicians will tell you every great genius has his idol. This violinist's idol was Mozart. In his own words, the musician described the turning point in his early musical career. He really began to learn only when I was about 13 years old. Mainly after I had fallen in love with Mozart's sonatas. The attempt to reproduce their singular grace compelled me to improve my technique. I believe, on the whole, that love is a better teacher than sense of duty. With me, at least, it certainly was. Once a friend asked the violist to comment on modern times. When the musician was a boy, wars were fought with rifles and cannons. Now, the entire world might be devastated. What did that mean to the old man? The violinist hesitated, sat back thoughtfully in his chair. It would mean, he said at last, that people would no longer hear Mozart. For him, this most deeply conveyed the end of civilization. On many an occasion, he would break an hours-long chamber music session with the same observation. Mozart's music was so pure that it seemed to have been ever present in the universe, waiting to be discovered by the master. So, the great genius had an idol, and that idol was Mozart. For him, Mozart was what the world was all about. And when this violinist was offered the highest Jewish honor, the presidency of Israel, he declined, saying that he had felt unqualified for a role that involved human relations. Yet, who could have felt human warmth more deeply than the musician who worshipped Mozart, than the old Jewish gentleman who serenaded Christian carolers from his last home? For him, Mozart was not a composer, but a discoverer of celestial music that lay waiting in the universe. So when the violinist began to explore the universe, those closest to him believed that he was merely searching for what Mozart had found. More logically, this musician's idol might well have been Sir Isaac Newton, but he counted himself first as a violinist. For the musician who worshipped Mozart, the revered genius who could have been president of Israel, was the man who literally altered the meaning of infinity, hoping to discover music. He was Dr. Albert Weinstein. And now you know the rest of the story. That's our show
today. Beginning today, treat everyone you meet as if they were going to be dead by midnight. Extend them all the care, kindness, and understanding that you can muster. Your life will never be the same again. So many of our dreams at first seem impossible, then they seem improbable, and then when we summon the will, they soon become inevitable. You know, the real secret of happiness is to make others believe that they're the cause of it. Robert Cardoza Live is brought to you by blogtalkradio.com every Monday through Friday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Now, go out and make it a great day. Your host has been Robert Cardoza, the technical advisor, Matchstick Digital, and your executive producer, also Robert Cardoza.